Have you ever heard the expression "let sleeping podcasters lie"?
Forget it, Tommy. It's Chinatown. Coming up next. Haven't seen it with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tebene. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time. And today that is Tommy
Yeah.
taken down to Chinatown. I remember watching this during COVID and I was like, wow, that was amazing. And then I forgot most of the movie and I was watching with my girlfriend and she was like, you'll tell me what's gonna happen, right? I'm like, I kind of remember the really
Yeah.
big twist and the ending, and that's it. Like I don't really remember anything else that
This is
happens with it. So
yeah.
it was nice to go back into it. It's a great movie. It really is a great movie.
It's a solid movie. I think a movie that would also be improved by rewatches in general, because it's a lot to unpack at once for a first view.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot to unpack. There's a lot of moving parts. And it can be a little slow at the beginning. I feel like is definitely part of it as well. But before we jump into Chinatown, Tommy, what are some movies that you've seen? I know we've had some big theatrical releases. Have you gone to see any of them?
So I drove all the way to the Alamo Drafthouse in Yonkers, New York, to go see the Hitman, the new Richard Linklater movie of Glenn Powell, because it's not playing anywhere in Connecticut whatsoever. So
Not playing anywhere in the state of Tennessee. And Tennessee is a much larger state than Connecticut, and not
yeah,
sandwiched in between like Boston and New York either.
yeah. So it makes kind of sense that it's not playing in Connecticut, but I still had to drive an hour on my way to go see this movie, and it was good. Netflix for some reason just to get the theatrical experience, but I
Well,
don't think this.
it's against their business model. Of course they do.
Yeah, because they just want like subscriptions that are hostile
See,
against the physical media in
who
general too.
who is it? The CEO of Netflix is like, yeah, my son, he was an editor and he watched Lawrence of Arabia on his iPhone. And I'm like, I haven't seen it. And the reason I haven't specifically seen Lawrence of Arabia is because I'm waiting to go see it in a movie theater because I've
Yeah.
heard that it is like this is the reason movies were made. It was made to be put into a theater and watched on the largest screen possible. So I'm waiting for that moment in time that I my schedule is open and a theater near me is showing Lawrence of Arabia.
Well, it's one of those things that, like, I think anytime I watch a movie, if I'm watching it like on my tablet or something like that, it's okay if it's a movie I've seen like 100 times because whatever, I know like all the beats. But my first time seeing a movie is always going to be the best when I see it in theaters. And I know you're trying to shit on me for seeing Dune on my tablet, uh, which which was what it was. But Hitman, I think is a really fun, charming movie. But I don't think this is something that like called for a theatrical experience. So I could see Netflix's overall mindset behind this because this is essentially just a low-key Richard Linklater romantic black comedy with Glenn Powell putting on the show course performance of him just like showing how he can have chemistry with everyone at once. He puts on different disguises and different performances throughout this movie. It's really fun seeing him get into all these different get-ups.
Yeah, well, he's just making all the right decisions since Top Gun Maverick in his career. Like he's taking off and exploding. I actually thought Twisters, I'm kind of looking forward to Twisters. I think we're talking about doing Twister,
Yeah,
the
has any of
OG.
us seen it?
Well, I saw it when I was a kid, but that doesn't
Oh,
count.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting conversation about like what merits a theatrical a theatrical release, what doesn't. And I'm kind of on the camp that I kind of want the option of almost all of this stuff to be out there if it's with like a premier director like Richard Linklater and by with like a rising star like Glenn Powell. Like I want to see this, like not the stuff that's going straight on Tubi or whatever, the stuff that somebody's filming in their backyard, but
Yeah.
like an actual production. I'd like the chance to see it in a theater. And I think it kind of leads to a more interesting question when we speak on the movie that I know you have seen, I have seen. It was the big Memorial Day release. It was, and I'm not talking about Garfield. I'm talking about Furiosa, which I think was an interesting case of like this is going to be the big box office slam dunk. It's like Fury Road wasn't a box office slam dunk. It just kind of has like a fairly large like cult following behind it because it's like one of the most engaging action movies, but it's certainly not like a crowd pleaser. And I didn't think a 2.5 hour release was gonna prequel to this movie was going to then light up the box office. So I always
Well,
thought that was an interesting conversation.
there's a little bit of a revision with like Fury Road that everyone loved Fury Road and it was a huge box office
It was
success.
not a box
And
office success at all.
it was like 300, maybe 380 million Fury Road. I mean, that's not bad, but it's not something that like,
Not on
a
the
billion
budget,
dollar
not against the budget. It is. Yeah, for a 1980 for like Terminator, that's a really great box office return, but not for something that has over $100 million. You're barely
Yeah,
scratching even on that.
exactly. So like, that was Mad Max Fury Road 90 years ago. And like people on like film Twitter and like, online film community, if act like everyone knows Fury Road's the greatest movie ever. Like, and I think that we would agree that movie rocks and fucking is awesome.
Oh, I rewatched it
But
after Furiosa. Oh.
yeah, still great, still great. But it's one of those things. Like I remember I saw that movie with my parents. My parents hated it. My buddy was telling me a story how he saw it with his dad. His dad made him walk out because he's like, "This is too weird for me." I don't think that Mad Max has ever been a franchise that has broad mass appeal in the way that like some of the
No,
other blockbuster
no,
franchises had. I
no,
mean,
it's
we
just
covered Mad Max 1 on the podcast last month. That was so I like that movie, but again, that was something that has like crazy moments of like people getting like fucking like raped and like
and,
beaten to
and,
death and stuff
and
like that.
Fury Road, it like tells its story through its characters and its world of like what is going on here. And it boils down to just bunch of weird Australian people in the desert making a movie with exploding cars, which like that works for me. Like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
I want to see
that's
that.
all I need.
But like opposing Furiosa is the Garfield movie. Like the people that want to go see the Garfield movie, like I feel like that, people cared about Garfield like they probably did in the 80s. Like nobody reads comic panels anymore, like newspapers. Talking about a
Well,
dead
the thing
medium here.
is, the Garfield movie has actually been having some decent legs compared to Furiosa. I mean, right now it's at 156 million worldwide off a 60 million budget. I think they're kind of happy at that at this point.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are.
But it's one of those things that like I don't think either of those movies for Memorial Day weekend was something that like made people other than like people like you and me were like fuck yeah, George Miller's doing a new Mad Max movie. I gotta go see it right now. Most people don't even know who George Miller is. I think the general audience you ask
no,
them.
no, and you do know who it is because I know you. I know you, young listener, and you've seen Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2 and
Yeah,
Babe Pig in the City, and that is George Miller. So you do know who George Miller is. It's not just some weird Australian that us people who watch too many movies recognize. Okay, I'm talking to the audience right here.
yeah.
You know who he is, and you just pretend not to. I think Furiosa 9 years is a really long time for not like a Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like in a
For not
gap.
an A-list franchise. This is like a
Yeah, this
B-list
is like a
franchise.
B, C list franchise. Even like I think it's a really long release gap window. I think 2.5 hours is a really long movie when it's like just Chris Hemsworth hemming it up and Taylor-Joy being like, I speak 30 lines. And people are like, I would like my protagonist to say more than 30 lines. And guess what? In the context of the story, makes sense why she only has very limited lines of dialogue. But also, Anya Taylor-Joy is only in the movie for like half of it. So,
Well, it's
I think
also the whole like Charlize Theron not being Furiosa again. Like some people apparently are boycotting the movie, or they're like, "Oh, I don't want to see this
she
prequel of
she
Anya Taylor-Joy." Charlize
she
Theron was never going to be in it. She
they
hated
could
doing
offer
that
her a
Fury Road.
$100 million salary and she was not taking it. She hated because like think about like these movies. They're filmed in the desert.
Yeah,
There's you're just in the hot sun in these weird cars and these heavy costumes, like sweating. Like it's not a comfortable filming experience. It's
even like
not.
Anya Taylor-Joy has like been talking about that. There's some things from this movie I'm not going to be talking about for 20 years at least. So it's
Yeah,
just like even then,
she's
I
saying
mean,
like I'm not going to talk about it until George Miller's dead, and Like it's probably gonna be like, hey, it sucked to film this movie. Like it was awesome, it rocked, but it sucked to make. And
Yeah,
I don't blame her. I mean, and it's a shame that it's not doing better because it is ultimately a really good revenge story.
yeah. I
Kind
mean,
of
I'm glad
feels.
it got made. I liked it a lot. I thought the action was great. That one 15-minute action sequence of the
Oh,
war
and
ring
it's
alone
it's
was
like the
fucking insane. It was incredible. It was like this is why George Miller just cooks. He's like essentially our best action movie director out there. I'd say these days.
yeah. And I think another thing with it too is that I really liked about it. It it's paced very differently than Fury Road. It'll actually be an excellent back-to-back watch because it tells the story of Furiosa growing up versus Mad Max, which is just a 2 hour action scene. Like that's what the movie is.
Yeah,
And I think it was a wise decision to separate the two and not have that like anarchic energy, which I think some like I could see Furiosa being better received by people that weren't put off by Fury Road, just because it has like a more traditional story structure versus Mad Max, which does not have that and is just kind of an insane movie and experience, and it's a miracle that that movie works the way it does. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed Furiosa. It's gonna be one of those like culty movies. I'm putting it in my Babylon honorary mention that in 15 years people are gonna be like, why were we slamming this? Why didn't people go and watch this movie?
yeah. I still gotta go to the Babylon train. That's we were thinking about doing that at the time, but then we realized that no one's fucking watched this movie, so we didn't cover on the
Yeah,
pod back then.
let's throw a bat when we're really struggling to come up with a third movie for the month. Let's do Babylon.
Yeah. So
I haven't watched that in a while, but movie I'm really glad I got to revisit is Chinatown.
Los Angeles, 1937. There are lots of guys like J.J. Gittes. They're easy to find, if you want to find them.
Where were you when your husband died? You were seeing someone too. For very long?
I don't see anyone for very long, Mr. Geddes. It's difficult for me.
Mr. Giddens, you're dealing with a disturbed woman who's just lost her husband. I don't want her taken advantage of.
The truth. I said I wanted the truth!
You do your job, and sometimes you find the answers to questions that should never be asked. Or you find out what happens to people who ask them.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway in Chinatown, rated R.
Oh my God, Tommy, they said the line. They said the line, Tommy. Forget it.
it's kind of crazy that like they the trailer shows the last line of the movie. I mean, like what?
Well, it doesn't well because it's a good way to I like saw the visual of it on the trailer when they go to the line and it actually like makes sense because one of the interesting things about Chinatown is it's more like metaphorical. They only go there at the very end of the movie. It's more about the character J.J. Gittes and his history with it and how history is kind of repeating itself. That is kind of the conundrum of the movie. Directed by Roman Polanski. This is probably his most famous movie that's kind of stood on, I would say. Like Rosemary's Baby is his other one. Kind of want to kick the conversation off with the Roman Polanski of it all because he's a controversial figure.
To say the least.
It's
I
just
mean, he was obviously his wife Sharon Tate was murdered in their house by the Manson family. This was apparently his like first time coming back to LA. Really, since then he almost wanted to get off the movie because it was so weird being so close to like his former house. And I don't remember the specific details of what he did, but this is his last movie filmed in America. He
yeah.
lives.
So in 1977, he was arrested for drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl. He pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of unlawful sex with a minor in exchange for a probation-only sentence. The night before his hearing, he learned that the judge would likely reject, so he fled the United States to Europe, where he continued his career. And I think it brings up an interesting case of art versus the artist, because I think we found out over the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years A lot of these people making these movies and shows are not good people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, like after the whole Me Too era, I mean, it's one of those things that like this guy has not returned to America since like the
So you'd be
like
arrested on touchdown.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because be arrested immediately. So I mean, the fact this guy's still able to have a career, he's made like iconic movies since like The Ninth Gate or The Pianist, which was an Oscar winner and stuff like that. He came out with a movie
Adrian
last
Brody,
year.
Adrian Brody won his Oscar, and Roman Polanski got a standing ovation from the crowd in Hollywood. Tells you how
Yeah,
they feel
yeah.
about it. I've seen things saying that the girl that was involved had come out and said things about, hey, like it's okay to separate the art from the artist. I think it's very difficult because like a movie is not like a director has a big impact on a film, but there's hundreds of people involved in the production of movies. I think it's kind of unfair to just say like write off a movie because of one person's poor actions, because it
I
is such a collaborative effort. But it would be remiss of us not to mention the fact that this is a part of who Roman Polanski is.
there's also like certain cases where it's a lot easier to separate the art from the artist than a case of Rogue Polanski because when you're watching this film or movie, um, he is not on screen. Or I mean, he was on screen for this movie, but like not really. And compared to something like like your Bill Cosby or whatever, where like
Kevin
you can't
Spacey.
watch Kevin Spacey, yeah. I mean, like with those guys, you can't watch the Cosby Show anymore because Bill Cosby's front and center here. You're just gonna be thinking about that the whole time. It leaves you a little bit of like separation when the guy is behind the camera instead of the guy in front of the camera. There's still like Harvey Weinstein movies I'll watch, but
Yeah, being behind the camera versus in the camera, I tend to look at it as like it's a collaborative effort, and it's hard,
yeah,
it's hard. I think it's more apparent when it's something where like somebody like is in like not that I would, but like those Nickelodeon shows, like I wouldn't feel comfortable going back because like he was harassing those. Like I wouldn't show that to my future kids because like the guy
yeah,
behind the camera was like sexually harassing the young cast members, right? Like this
yeah.
is a separate thing, like where I know that the tension is there on that specific set. I'd probably have a bigger issue with it. But I think it's just important that we do touch on that issue because it is something that did happen, and it's very unfortunate that it did happen to that poor young girl. But it's very hard for us to not for us to sit here and say that like Chinatown is a great movie. It is a great movie, and you can separate those two instances in your brain. I
Yeah.
always say it's like something that I think is very good. Like a movie like Children of Men is a fantastic movie, but it's not one of my favorite movies because it's very upsetting and it's tough to watch, but that doesn't make it not a great movie, right? Like,
Well, with Chinatown, it's like one of those things where you could say you can like this movie or say this movie's amazing and still think that Rogue Polanski's a piece of shit.
yeah, and that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. That is what I'm in
yeah,
fact saying. Roman
yeah,
Polanski is a piece of shit, but he directed a good movie. Before
yeah.
this happened here. So that is our Roman Polanski touch. I wanted to just get it out of the way so that way we don't derail a future conversation about it here. Um, so with Chinatown, it follows J.J. Gittes and his investigation into the water systems of Los Angeles in the middle of a drought. And that is like the broad synopsis without going further into it there. Um, Evelyn Mulwray shows up to Detective J.J. Gittes' office, a woman saying that she believes her husband is part of infidelity, and we watch Jake just kind of go through his process here, following Hollis Mulwray around, which had this sequence had one of my favorite shots I've ever seen in any movie. When he's following her, he finally gets to the mistress's apartment complex. He's up on the roofs and he's taking pictures, and it cuts to him taking the shots, and you just see in the reflection of the camera lens the two of them right there. And I was like, oh my God, that is in just like it just looks so good. And like the cinematography in this movie is so good.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I mean all the different shot choices in general. I mean, even the last final shot of this movie just really hits that way because it's just so stunning.
yeah, it's a very stunning Very stunning, powerful shot. But it turns out that the Evelyn Mulwray who hired her was an actress being paid off by somebody, and the real Evelyn Mulwray is annoyed, and then her husband dies mysteriously, and now it's up to Detective J.J. Gittes to figure out what's going on. So Tommy, your first watch through, what did you know about it going into it?
Yeah. So going into it, this is a movie like obviously I knew of the line "Forget Jake is Chinatown." I thought that line was spoken by Faye Dunaway to like him in the end, like just forget about it. You can't solve the mystery. I thought that's what the context of it was. Obviously, she was not the one that said it because her character, spoiler, was dead at that point, and I knew the twist of like it's not my
Sister.
she's not my daughter, she's my sister and my daughter, like kind of thing. I knew that, and that was pretty much the extent of it. I thought this was a solid neo noir right here. I think it's a movie like we talked before recording. It's gonna take me a little bit to unpack. I feel like on certain rewatches, I would appreciate this movie a little more. But first watch felt a little dense in that aspect, but it's still captivating performance by Jack Nicholson throughout. I mean, this is a movie that like pretty much, I mean, obviously did not invent the film noir, but you can see how much it influenced further cases in that genre. I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, for example, is just like a parody of this movie.
Yeah, you can feel the Roger Rabbit influence, the influence this would have on a movie like Roger Rabbit. When you say dense, like, are you saying that as a good thing or a bad thing? Because for me, watching a murder mystery movie, neo noir, like dense is good because that just means there's actually meat on
I
the
think
bones and there's
I think
interesting
it's
things.
actually good. I think it's in a good case because apparently there's like a version of the screenplay where Jack Nicholson was going to have like a voiceover, which would have just been like a little cheesy, a little bit too much. And Roman Polanski like smartly decided like, let's get rid of the voiceover. Let's just let the audience decide. They figure out the clues. What Jack Nicholson's character figures out the clues instead. And what was that?
First cut of Blade Runner.
Yeah, exactly. The first cut of Blade Runner. Oh God, I've seen that cut before.
I haven't. I've heard it is not good.
Yeah, it's not. Voiceovers rarely work unless it's like
Voiceovers work as narrations. I don't think they work as
Yeah.
like cutting in to cue the audience. It just means you don't respect the audience's intelligence to figure things out.
it's very much handholding. Like I remember, I only saw like a scene or two of like the Blade Runner narrator cut, but I was just like, this guy I'm talking to right now is the police chief, and he's an alcoholic, and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, we don't need you to tell us everything. We can just figure this out through the movie. We're in a film medium. It's not a novel.
Yeah, I can't, when I'm reading a book, I can't see the person's face. But when I'm watching a movie, I can't read their inner monologue, but I can see their face, and that's up to the actor to then put that through, and release that. And I like loved Jack in this. It's just like a total case of like, oh yeah, this guy's like one of the biggest movie stars of all time for a specific reason. Like he's so in control, powerful in this. What I really appreciate about his character is that he never uses the threat of violence. He uses the threat of having the information at hand to get what he wants as like the mystery unfolds. So it's not a case of like him coming in with a gun to Faye Dunaway being like, tell me what's going on or I'm going to kill you. It's the glasses that he pulled out of the saltwater ravine in the backyard, being like, you drowned him. Tell me what's going on here. Like it's that way of him using the information versus the other side of things where I feel like a lot of times in a lesser script, he's just holding a gun. And I loved how that little saltwater sequence was foreshadowed, if you will. You saw that glimmering object in the water at the beginning of the
Yeah.
movie.
I mean, I was expecting his character to be more kind of like Michael Douglas and like Basic Instinct, of like a former cop or like corrupt cop or something like that, who like is kind of on the edge and like is like violent with women or something like that. Instead, he was just like I think his character overall was mostly just a good guy trying to figure out what the fuck is happening. So that
Yeah.
in itself was a little shocking.
He's definitely a flawed character. Like
Yeah,
when the photos of Hollis Mulwray release, it's very clear that he put them in the papers. and got his name out there. So he definitely has something about himself that he wants to chase fame and chase recognition and all of this. And then he is also, I would say he's a little, so vain would probably be the best way to put that, but he's also, he's aggressive when he's getting confronted, right? Like when they're in the barber shop and the guy's like, the banker's like, yeah, I guess, you'll do anything to get yourself famous, to become a movie star. And he's like, you want to go outside and fight? So he's like very defensive of who he is. And I think it makes for a very interesting character because that's who we're kind of introduced to him as. And kind of watching that break down because he is in the middle of like a high profile corruption case, the power in the waterworks there. So what for you, Tommy, how did you feel that like Faye Dunaway's performance was as Evelyn?
I
Like how
thought she
did
was a good little. I thought she was a good little foil where like it was like kind of like the almost femme fatale type where it's just like you're not really sure where her like just lie like is she on the set, is she not. I thought that her scene of like her breaking down and explaining everything that happened, like she's like this is what happened to me, my father raped me and I'm like I had this kid, she's my sister and my daughter, was really great. And like the fact that like she was willing to go through apparently like it never really looked right about like how Jack Nicholson was like slapping her like on the screen. So she just told him like just fucking slap it. Like it's okay. It'll play on camera. You can do it. And Jack Nicholson's like, all right, I guess if you want me to slap you, I'll slap you. And he did it, and like she felt very guilty for it. And like the shot actually went to the movie, so there's an actual scene of Jack Nicholson just fucking slapping the shit out of
yeah,
her.
because I mean it looks very compelling. Yeah, you could just do that in the 70s. It would just be like, just slap me. It was
Yeah.
like Jonah Hill was talking about that for Wolf of Wall Street, where he was like, I would only do this for a Martin Scorsese movie, but the steroid guy that was there, like there's a moment where he has to hit him and like it just wasn't coming out right, and he was like, all right, Jonah, like I'm just gonna sock you, like it's just gonna happen once, and he was like, all right, and he just got walloped, and that was the take that they ultimately used. So it's like little things that end up coming through in these movies that like when I feel like when actors tend to believe in the screenplay and the movie they're making, like they're willing to push the limits of what they're actually comfortable with in that moment, versus maybe a lesser movie, an actor would be like, yeah, I don't care how it looks, you're not doing that to me. Because you could definitely, I'm sure on the set you can feel if it's going well or if it's not going well.
It never makes sense to make that. It was just great, especially just in the last scene of her shooting John Huston, her running away, and just the amount of distress. I mean, she had towards the beginning, just a total 180 from the beginning, where she was just very cool, even keeled, and just like she felt like in the beginning she was one step ahead of Jake at all times.
Yeah, and John Huston as Noah Cross. So John Huston's the famed film director from the 1950s coming in, and Noah Cross, very menacing character, even in the first scene when the audience isn't fully aware of how much, wrong he has done to his family. And his obsession just of finding the young girl, the girl that was the mistress, quote unquote, and offering to pay JJ $10,000, which was, a couple $100,000 back in that time, which was a lot of money. And I just like absolutely loved his performance in this because he's really not in the movie that often. He's in the movie for 2 scenes, but you
But
can
you
feel.
feel once you get introduced to him in that first scene, you just feel his presence throughout this. I think that his performance was so good that he's the father of Angelica Houston, and she brought her like young sister to the set because Angelica Houston was named Jack Nicholson at the time, and her young sister was like 10 years old. She's like, maybe you shouldn't watch her dad do this scene because like it might a little traumatize you a little bit of seeing him as a villain. And I think that he gave a great like this I guess a little scummy performance in a way.
Yeah, oh,
The way
total
to describe
scummy.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Because
like total, just like
the central conflict is that these wealthy people are buying up land in the valley, which was not a part of Los Angeles at this time. They weren't feeding it, they were feeding it water there, taking water away from the city, and then planning to basically redistrict the valley into Los Angeles, thus increasing the price of the land. And I think one of the like 1970s movie of it all, because that's what like this is such has such a 1970s ending, because like the heroes do not win in the end, and it is very realistic that a wealthy and powerful man like Noah Cross gets away with it. He gets shot, and then the cops shoot his daughter, and then he's able to take his granddaughter slash daughter away and he just kind of like scurries off screen, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And his
It's just
plan of going through with like the water system is it's going to happen, and there's just nothing you can do to stop it.
yeah, no, like that's what the other movie is. Just like this shit happens, Jake. That you can't get too wrapped up into this. What's insane to think about is that they made a sequel to this in 1990 called The Two Jakes. Jack Nicholson himself directed it because I guess at that point we're like, nah, I don't need Polanski in this. I can direct it myself.
Well, I think that was more of a like, Jack, we really want to make a sequel to Chinatown. I'll do it if I can direct it.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that Robert Town came back to do the script, but I just watched like the whole like trailer for this movie, The Two Jakes. It just doesn't touch upon anything that happened in the beginning. Of like, you know, the Faye Dunaway part. You think that would be like something that traumatized them throughout, and it's just like, how do you follow up that movie from like that perfect ending? I feel like it just almost ruins. I mean, obviously, no one remembers The Two Jakes. I mean, I didn't know this movie existed until maybe a week or two ago, but still, it's like it almost feels like you're undermining the story by trying to continue it.
Yeah, it definitely undermines it, and you just kind of like most terrible corporate sequels, you just like people get so obsessed with canon, and I'm like, who cares? Just like the things that you like and don't like the things you don't like. I think you just kind of treat this as the standalone film that it truly is. I think we should cover the Chinatown of it all though, because it's not explicitly told to us what happened to Jake, to Giddies, when he was a cop in Chinatown, but it is referenced that there was a woman involved that he was trying to save, and it didn't go right. And that's obviously starting to repeat itself here with Evelyn, somebody who has been wronged, is being falsely accused of something, being framed for it, and is trying to do his best to help her out. What do you like the approach in the screenplay of not telling us what happened exclusively in Chinatown?
I don't think we need like a whole flashback or anything like that,
I agree.
or like a whole extended scene. I think what we got was just enough of him just like recounting just a little bit of what happened.
It fit the character for him to not have a big old emotional breakdown telling us everything that happened, and it also gave us enough to implicate that what happened to him in Chinatown is exactly what's happening to him now, and he's repeating this, um, and it leads into that perfect ending there. And I think another beautiful part of this movie is that you do get the sense that Giddies is a very competent detective. Like the way he was able to look at the obituaries, go to the Hall of Records, go to the plots of land, and then go to the retirement home and see all the people that are in the obituaries are alive and well and doing activities at this senior center. Like, right? Like it was just a really effective
I
like showcasing of like his competency. So I think
well,
sometimes in these movies we don't get to see that from the detective character.
well, on the same point though, I like that his character wasn't like some superhuman. Like he wasn't like fucking like a great detective on top of like being a great fighter. Anytime this guy gets in a fight in this movie, he gets his ass kicked.
He gets the shit kicked out of him in this
Yeah, I
movie,
mean, like
man.
half the movie, he has like fucking like stitches on his nose because like
He
Roland
got
Polanski himself comes up to him and cuts his nose off.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, to be fair, there's not too much you could do in that one to
But yeah,
stop that
like
from
the one with
happening.
like the he goes on the farmland and the farmers beat the shit out of him.
Yeah,
And rough him up.
the farmers is the tough one. The farmers is the one where he's like, "What, you big old loot?" Like he just calls him a loot, and then they start kicking his ass again. Because they
Yeah,
think he's with the water company or the real estate companies, because both people are trying to get all these farmers off of their land and buying them. Like that is
yeah,
their objective there, and it's a very big scandal that's in the making that he's uncovering. And
yeah.
one of the other characteristic traits I get from him is that like he cares about his job, he cares about his career, and he cares about how he's seen by the public. That's all been very portrayed to us. And he ultimately, when he finds out that the girl is Evelyn's daughter and sister. Like he kind of puts that aside, like risking it with the detectives that he, used to work with, who are expecting him to turn Evelyn in. He betrays them and he takes them to Curly's house. Burt Young, like what a stunner that was to see him right there at the top.
Oh yeah, did not expect that whatsoever. I mean, I expected like most of like the Rocky cast was like kind of like unknown, of like Talia Shire at the time, but Burt Young just making a character actor appearance right there in the beginning. Did
And
not see that coming.
Burt Young is the first thing we see in this movie where Giddys shows him, taking pictures of his wife having an affair. And the next time we see Curly is when he's trying to make an escape and he's going to pay Curly to take Evelyn and her family across the border into Mexico and transport the things. And he drags the cops to the house and you open the door. And of course, the wife answers it, and she's just got a crusher of a black eye. I was like, oh man.
One thing to say, it's shocking that Burt Young only died like last year because the dude looked like he was already fucking like 60 years old.
He looks like he's
this movie.
yeah.
This movie came out 50 years ago. This month it celebrates 50th anniversary, and you have Burt Young looking like a already middle-aged 60-year-old dude.
He looks like not 60, but he looks like he's in his 40s there for sure. When he probably is a man in his early 30s.
He was 34 when this movie was released.
Yeah, I am 3 years younger than Burt Young was when that came out, and I look 40 years younger than him.
Exactly. So it's something about that 70s air right there.
Just the smoke everywhere. You just walk into any place and you're just
Yeah.
getting cigarette swept in your face. And they didn't have Botox back then.
They didn't care about skincare, Sun
no.
lotion wasn't as like effective as it was is now. So
I don't know about that. I just think people wore it less. They were less concerned about that. But that Burt Young, I had to shout out my guy there, Burt Young.
yeah. Another thing I like about Jack Nicholson's character is that he just seems to be like the wise ass that just can't keep his fucking mouth shut. Because so many times he gets in the cases where it's just like, maybe it's like your wife or something like that. That's what I was saying. And then the cop was like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. What the fuck, man?
Yeah,
he keeps on getting into the situations that we're never.
He's a little bit of a smarmy wise ass, but he's ultimately a very smart and caring person, and then that's what attaches us to his character. And I appreciate about this movie, as dense as it is and plot centric as it is, it's really pushed forward by its strong characters. It is like a character driven story, and it for me, like, that was what stood out for me in my second watch through.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
So I feel like we've covered all the main players in this. Tommy.
Yeah, I mean,
who's the star of Chinatown?
Jack Nicholson. I mean, obviously. I mean, I think Faye Dunaway is great, but I don't think that she like holds a candle to Jack Nicholson. I think that there's a piece of trivia on IMDb. Jack Nicholson is in every single scene. I don't think there's a single scene they can see in my life.
Oh yeah, he's in every single scene in this movie. He carries this movie.
I mean, like, this is obviously like this run of like where he just started Easy Rider like a few years before that. The last detail before, which was done for Kevin Lawrence, and this is like right before One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I felt like this is one of the ones that like definitely just put him in that A plus. And he obviously was on a super stretcher. This is one part of his great run.
Yeah, this is what made him Lakers Jack. Like, this is what made him the guy sitting on the sidelines at the Laker games and this like American iconic figure. I mean, Faye Dunaway, terrific. John Huston was so menacing in such a short period of time. I believe he's on the AFI's like top 100 villains, and he's in the movie for 5 minutes, but it's really, really effective. But it's ultimately Jack's movie, and it's like one of the pinnacle performances of his entire career.
Oh, 100%. And I do like to shout out James Hong. I mean, he didn't do much in this movie, but it was
I know.
See him in that
I was like, James Hong. Oh my God. I was stunned. That guy's been in like 300 movies. Like, that guy is just a workaholic. Still working.
Still
Jack hasn't worked in a decade. James Hahn's still out there crushing, but they're both
Jack
in
Nicholson
Chinatown.
made a movie called The Bucket List, and that came out 17 years ago, and he's still kicking.
That wasn't his last movie though. He was in
That
like one with Owen
is
Wilson. It was like a national with Chris Pratt. I can't remember what it's called, but it wasn't
it
good.
was called How Do You Know? It was made by James L. Brooke, and he did The Bucket List, and then he did How Do You Know? So it would have been better if his career ended on The Bucket List. I think
Would
the
have been
rest was
better if
about
his career ended on The Departed. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah. So I mean, his last 3 movies, Departed, Bucket List, and one of those movies is an all-time classic. The other two, we don't need to talk about.
Hey, it put the word bucket list into the vernacular because nobody was using that term before, and that is a lasting cultural impact, no matter how mediocre the movie is.
Are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
All right, Tommy. Would Chinatown, a movie about a father raping his daughter and then having a granddaughter with his daughter, work as a Muppet adaptation?
Yeah, a little too much. I mean, I could see Kermit the Frog just in his war outfit. I think we've seen him in that too. The Great Muppet Caper is probably the closest we'll ever get to a Muppet Chinatown. So we got that.
Yeah, if you want to do a noir Muppets, it's going to have to be less intense, less serious, and kind of a little more on the wacky. But if you had, better than the two Jakes would have been just JJ Giddies running around with the Muppets, like it's Toontown, like it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's a nice little.
It's the Happy Time Murders. I'm sending you a picture in the group in the chat right now of Kermit the Frog as a noir guy. This looks perfect right there. I mean, that's all you need.
Being green.
Yeah,
it would work. It would work. All right.
In terms of that aspect.
In terms of that aspect, not in terms of adapting Chinatown. All right, Tommy, review time. Give me a score out of 5.
Jack Nicholson puts on a great performance. This is a fun first watch. I think this is a movie that will definitely improve upon rewatch for me as I figure out the plot more and more, and not just have to reread the Wikipedia plot something at the end just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm gonna go 4 out of 5. I like this for a first watch. I think Polanski gave it just great direction, great little cinematography right here, and this is a movie I definitely, like I said, could see improving more when I watch it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go 5 out of 5. I absolutely love this movie. I think it's thought provoking. I think it's a character driven mystery, which I don't think is something you often get. Super compelling, perfectly acted, incredibly shot. I understand why this is considered one of the greatest movies of all time. I truly love this movie. I think maybe Tommy in like 6 months will be like, I was rewatching Chinatown. I think I'm ready to bump it up to a 5, and I could see you doing that for me.
Yeah.
But I truly love this movie, and it's definitely one of those ones in 50 years people will still be talking about. So that is our coverage of Chinatown. Tommy, any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
So my Jack Nicholson impersonation, I think, was solid after this episode. So I gotta get out there.
You did a Jack impression? I didn't even notice.
Even notice it. So maybe not. Maybe need some work on it. So next time. And next time I'll get my Jack Nicholson going.
Oh my, Tommy, that's the worst impression I've ever. You just do the same voice every time you try to do. Next time I'll get my Jack Nicholson impression going. Like what was that? Listen,
I'm
Tommy.
working on it. You got a new word. Wait till I get 11.
All right, do the plugs. Do the plugs.
All right.
Do the plugs.
All right. So thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on social media. That's at CNETPod. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and very, very occasionally a thread. Jim's going to be the only ones on there. But leave us a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast really helps us out, helps us grow the show. Next week, we are going to Middle Earth to discuss Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Timmy is really testing my commitment to the podcast because I'm going to 11:30 screening for 3.5 hours on Saturday.
I'm so excited. Oh, love those movies. I'm also going to the theater to see. Well, I can only see Return of the King because I have a wedding on Saturday, so I will not be able to see Fellowship. But I am very excited to see any of them in theaters. Nonetheless, I'm seeing a 4-hour version of Lord of the Rings next Monday. Yeah. So thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next week.